Hello. You are mute, by the way.
Thank you for that. Yeah, no, good afternoon and an evening for you, I suppose.
Yeah, it is kind of an end of a day over here. It's around 6 o'clock, Friday evening.
Okay. Nice to meet you.
Pleasure. Nice to meet you as well. So I can call you Joey, right?
Yeah, Joe, please. That's fine. That's
Joe.
perfect. Yeah,
Joey,
just Joe. Yes.
right? Okay,
Can you
awesome.
hear me clearly? See me clearly?
Oh, yeah, perfect. Perfect.
Okay. Same on this side.
Yeah, pleasure to have you on our show, Joe. And I think we booked this couple of quarters back. And thanks for accepting our invite and lovely to talk with people like in data industry. By the way, in which location you are in right now?
I'm in South Africa. So
Okay.
and this is where so that's basically where I've been based all my life.
Okay. So let's start. Let's start. Let's learn about you. Uh, our trend on our podcast is we let the guests to introduce themselves as well. We don't want to make a mistake of wrongly introducing because it's not a very formal podcast where I do a lot of research. I don't do a lot of research. I love to learn from people by themselves, like how they portrayed their experiences. So I'm by nature, I'm a solution architect, data solution architect. So I love to throw raw questions to the guest and learn. So floor is all yours, Joe. Tell us about yourself to our audience.
Thank you, Mustafa. Yeah, no, first of all, thank you for the opportunity. So my experience in the data management field spans for more than 25 years.
Wow.
So I started as a programmer. Then I moved to in the olden days, they call it the business intelligence space. But since then, about 20 years ago, I decided to go into the contracting field. So
Okay.
and that will include anything data management related. So I've worked at various clients. I would say at least 30 clients in South Africa, some of them international clients as well. If you look at the data management spectrum, it covers all the different aspects, data quality, metadata, governance. Um, I try to steer away from data security and infrastructure. So, but the rest of the spectrum, is basically where I focus on. And then 6 years ago, I started looking at knowledge management. As the enabler for what we are doing in the data management and information management spectrum. So yeah, that's more or less where I focus my main work on.
Okay, awesome. You just mentioned you are most of your career you are based in South Africa. It means you are not a South African. So tell us where you are from and how you end up in South Africa.
Yeah, no, sorry, yeah, I am born and bred in South Africa. Sorry
Born
about that.
in.
Yeah, sorry if my pronouncement wasn't good, I suppose. But yeah, no, I've been in South Africa since the start. So
Okay.
so main clients definitely in South Africa as well. The big corporations.
Yeah, so before we jump into technicalities, you've been your most of your career part was as a consultant or as a customer end.
Consultant. Most of my career was on the consultancy side. So
Okay.
that will include technical and business. So I move between spectrums to enable clients to get to specific strategic alignment. And so I facilitate in anything in data related in that spectrum. That
Okay,
will
awesome.
include governance, metadata management, quality, all those specific spectrums. That's the main focus. But then, like I said, in the back end, I focus on knowledge management as well, and how to bring these two fields together and why things are happening between that and where what is missing in both spectrums to make them more sufficient, I would say.
So I think this session is going to be very good. So with your experience, I think I can go as deep as possible and try to learn from you. But having said that, you've been in South Africa, it means you know Howard Diesel as well.
So sorry, I know.
Howard Diesel. Either Dama,
Yeah,
Chandra.
yeah, yes, yes. Not personally, but obviously via social media, I've seen him quite. Yeah, he's post, but yeah, I haven't met him personally, no, but I know
Okay.
about him.
So he has been on our podcast couple of times, one to one, and panel discussion. I think he was also there for a couple of times. So I think let's jump onto our topic, which is trust and knowledge management.
Mm,
It's a huge topic. It's a very important topic, and it's a buzzword right now. Why? Reason being, I've just started a series as well on coherence. I feel 2026 will not be a AI year. I think this will be a year of governance. This will be years of coherence, all those things, foundations. People have
mm,
already understood that if their foundation is not correct, when you say foundation, it can be a data architecture foundation, it can be a data modeling foundation, it can be a governance foundation, which can
mm,
include metadata, so many things are there. So I think this whole year we will focus on that. And I think that focus only came in because in last couple of years, this agentic AI and generative AI, especially generative AI, really make the trust go away from the customer end, right? So I think this
mm.
topic will be very. Tell us about this trust and knowledge management, and then we'll go into detail.
Okay, so what I've done is because so the last time I got my degree in '94, and then that gives away my age. So then I decided it was time to rekindle knowledge, go back to university, find something that makes sense for me. Because, as we all know, as soon as you start a project at clients, you have brilliant people, you've got skills, everything, the roles, responsibilities, but there's always something missing. It's always that like this miscommunication or misunderstanding. And then I decided to do a postgrad in University of Stellenbosch. And afterwards, I did my master's MPhil, specifically based on trust and technology trust. How does it all fit in? We all talk about trust, but do we have the same definition of trust? What does it mean? How does it work? So the study was based on this, and to get an idea of why things are not progressing to a certain point where we're talking about governance. So, for instance, a data governance project, why does it fail? You know? Is it a trust issue? So I started looking at that, and then when you say, even in data management specifically, is it not trust in general? And when you start digging down into that topic, you will see most of the things, everything we do today, actually is based on trust. And if you start looking at the attributes on how trust works, it makes sense why things, according to me, in my opinion, lags in projects. So So what I've done is in my studies, I've specifically looked at types of trust: interpersonal trust, organizational trust, information technology trust, the whole spectrum. And I said to myself, okay, now I know in the academic world what's happening and how it's been defined. But how do I take this practical thing that's happening in my world? If we start talking data management, for instance, from a technical point of view, if you speak to business people and you mention the word data, they cringe. Now they think, okay, now we're going that route. So how do you talk to that person? How do you transfer your knowledge in such a way that it makes sense for them in a trusting way? So that's the main idea, was why I decided, okay, let's focus. I'm going to focus on that and try to measure the levels of trust within organizations. I think the thing is, being from a practical or yeah, let's call it a practical side of doing things, moving to the academic world, to marry those two is quite interesting. What I found in my research is when you start reading papers and things, all the things that's happening outside in organizations has been studied. So there's a saying that say that in theory there's no difference between theory and practice, but in practice there is. So that's what's happening in the academic world. They can distinguish between practicality and theory, But
Mhm.
on the practical side, in the organization, you just focus on practicality. You don't look at theory.
Yeah,
So
true.
so it was quite interesting so I had a lot of aha moments when I said, okay, but listen, I've seen this before. Does it make sense? So this is why we all talk about it having a in a project, but now I understand why. Because they've got lots of case studies and academic papers verified, and I'm talking about verified. It's not like it's definitely been peer reviewed and said okay, this is actually this study is on par, and then that opened a new world to see for me to determine what is actually according to me the main thing that's missing in the data world. And then I came to realize for me it's knowledge management. Now, the problem with knowledge management is most companies will just focus on technology.
Mm.
So data management or data products or data tools is part of knowledge management. That's the information technology. But to be able to actively get it value from it, you still need to have the people involved, and you need to have the process to actually it's like and governance as well. You need those three pillars for it to be stable and working for your project or anything to function properly. Okay, and then you will get more attributes. I mean, if you start there, it can boil down to its culture, and all sorts of things that also needs to be discussed. But at the end of the day, that's where I focus on, and for me, it is actually when you do what I've done is I've taken all the verified trust measurement models out there academically. Most of them are based survey based. So you ask a couple of questions, and from there you've got a model where you can calculate trust if that's the right way of doing it. So I studied all of those models, and I came to five that's actually verified in the academic world, and I synthesized that in such a way that you can use that model to measure trust in an organization on different levels.
Okay.
And that will give you an indication. Let's say, for instance, I talk to you and I say, I usually take the example, for instance, I don't know what car do you drive?
It's a Volkswagen.
Volkswagen. So let's say, for instance, I am a Toyota guy,
Toyota,
okay?
okay.
And you believe in VW 100%. That's the best thing there is. And I, on my side, believe Toyota is the best thing to use to drive.
Hmm.
Now, let's say you take that, but you take it in a project side, and you say you prefer Databricks, and I say I prefer Snowflake.
Hmm.
What implications will that have with trust between us going forward?
Hmm.
So that's the thing which I studied. So to see as soon as somebody's got a different opinion or information technology preference, how
Hmm.
does it influence what's happening? And then you take it in a broader spectrum and say, but okay, let's except for information technology, if you look at different ways of doing things, you know, do you believe this? If let's say, for instance, like we said, VW and Toyota now. So, and I can say, I believe Toyota's the best, and you will believe. And then you start looking at the competency, the reliability. How vulnerable are you driving in this car? Those are all trust attributes which influences. So if you say, for instance, it's I don't know, a cheap car, then I will immediately think, but listen, this guy's taking risks. If he gives me advice on using this is the best car ever, then I don't want to, I'm not going to believe you. And that's going to influence trust going
Hmm.
forward. So if you propose something in the future, I'm going to question it because you've got different trust measures, if that makes sense.
Actually, it absolutely makes sense. Let me little bit brag about my canvas. The whole reason to come up with this canvas was that,
I love it. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
I will again. The whole reason to come up with this canvas was, which is value discovery canvas, is if you go into a vendor world in a startup company or any company, and you have salespeople with you, right? So what happens? Salespeople goes to a customer. Now at customer end, there are different kind of personas. There are people who simply engage vendors, salespeople to learn. They have no intention anything, but they tell vendor, "Hey, this project is awesome. We need to do it," but they have no authority, they have no budget, they have no visibility. So that one persona. The other persona is the people who really want to do something at a very grassroots level, but they do not know how to justify it to the management. They do not know how to get business case. Another persona is who just want to follow the KPI. Hey, generative AI is there, agentic AI is there, our management like it, we must do it. Then another persona is who really have control on the budget up to GM level or little bit of. Then the last one is C level. Just do it because their approach is how to make their company perception good into the market. So every persona have their own way to do it. So what I was trying to say is I absolutely agree with you because this canvas which vendor use, what happens, their sale people, if they are working on 100 opportunities, filling up the canvas drop 80% of the opportunities, which are not realistic because you have to fill up so many details inside and you need to that your top management need to trust whether your salespeople, when they are working on the opportunity, whether worth doing it not. They need to create a trust, right, based on the canvas. Same goes at the customer end. If customer end up using, let's say, a bank, end up using this canvas, what happens? The one of the biggest challenge a C level have it, especially CFO. So many projects come to them, they are so busy, but end of the day, 10-20% projects are one which goes into execution. So 80% drops means it was a waste of time. So this
Mm.
canvas again comes into this whole portfolio of customer end. Hey, whoever want to come up with any idea, fill up your idea into this canvas. I trust you. If this canvas is fulfilled 100%, then I will look into your project. So I agree with you that trust is something which is very, I would say, objective, not subjective. It's very objective and it starts from the business requirement. And when you start, actually, you are, I know, right? There is ROI, there is PTM, there is influence from the internal team. You give them a Lamborghini and ask them to move the boxes from here to there, they will hate it because
Mm.
they need a small wagon to move the boxes. Lamborghini is not going to work out, right? So these examples.
Yeah.
So I absolutely agree with you. And let's jump into further. Yeah.
Yeah, just an interesting point. You're talking about sales. So in the case study, so it was based on semi-structured questions.
Ah,
But one of the findings is that most people don't trust salespeople.
yes.
Sorry to say, but because it's just yeah, I had quite a few funny comments as well because of that. But then I said, okay, but okay, so when we started, I said, okay, what does trust mean to you? And then as part of the interviews, I said, okay, but trust, according to what we are discussing, means benevolence, competency, integrity, and you start using those attributes, those pure trust attributes, and you point it back to why don't you trust salespeople? Then you can actually start categorizing. It's not like, let's say, for instance, you've got great technology. Everybody agrees it's perfect. So if you look at the technology, the competency is there. It will produce. It's reliable. Um, are you vulnerable using it? Maybe, maybe not. So technology is fine. But now you go to the people. But yeah, look, I don't trust. They look shaky. It looks like they've got a technology, but some things I don't trust it. So then you ask why. So then you say, okay, again, this guy's changing his story all the time, things like that. So on all of that, you can base back to trust. And then you can see, but okay, that's why this has failed. But to get the information, to actually get honest, open feedback or information is really hard. You will never get that honesty. But that's something that will give you an idea on why. Because at the end of the day, it's all about knowledge sharing, and that's why I think. my one block you've seen, I've created this trust cycle for knowledge sharing.
Mhm.
So you've got implicit, explicit knowledge, things you can write down and share, but tacit knowledge, which is in our heads, uh, especially when it gets to innovation. How do you get people to share knowledge?
Mhm.
And again, then I said to myself that let me go back to trust. So I will not share knowledge with somebody which I don't trust,
Mhm.
if that makes sense. Or you will share limited knowledge because you still don't have that trust to share knowledge. So how do you build it? So then you can start looking at things that you feel that person you lack and not sharing, and then things will make more sense. So sometimes when I'm in meetings, it's for me, it's not the question of the people, it's a question of looking at the process and the system and the information technology, the process, people, process, system. And then you can identify, but hang on, this is happening because of knowledge sharing and trust attributes. You can directly point it. It's why things are going wrong or going right in some instances. But companies, I don't think companies will. Knowledge management is great. It's big, definitely, especially international world, but not in South Africa. South African knowledge management is just a small part. It is being practiced, but mostly, international side. But you can immediately see the benefits of knowledge management, and if you manage it correctly, things will go smoother.
Awesome. So sometime, let me put this question in, right? Sometime, rather most of the time, customer trust bigger companies, not because they are better, but because they are bigger and they can absorb the potential failure comes in if something goes
Yes,
wrong,
yes.
and they feel that they will go out of the box, bring someone or the other, and to fix it. X, Y. What do you say about that trust? Are you talking about that trust, or you're talking about trust based on knowledge?
So it's all about, I would say, trust for me is the first thing you do is you judge. So you will, when we start talking about big companies, you judge that big company. Now, how do you judge that big company? You judge it according to, I would call it trustworthiness. So you will look at the competence. So let's, for instance, this company, I mean, I've seen it all over. Um, it's working. Um, you trust on the perception of the integrity, how consistent that technology is for companies, and then the benevolence. Is it a two-way street where they mean good and for me and I mean good for them? Is it there? So that's the trustworthiness. So I think that's why a company's name and brand is really important, because that's where people start. They start judging before they start trusting. Now, the trusting part is where, as soon as the action comes in, so you will be able to engage with the big company according to the trustworthiness. But over time, you get to the point where it's, "But hang on, it's not reliable, it's not predictable. Um, it's I feel a bit vulnerable in the sense that there's perceived risk when I use this." And my belief is then just no, then you move away. And that circle continues. It's either going, in, enhance trust, or it will cause distrust. So most big companies, according to me, they've got the sense or the perception out there that they are trustworthy. And that's the
You're
judgment people
using,
make.
sorry, you're using great words here, right? Reliability, predictability, where perception. I think these words are great words if a smaller company goes, correct me if I'm wrong. I think let's go into that direction as well. And the five models which you mentioned, I would love to hear those models, how to build trust, because I'm doing a lot of advisory work here and there. And let me put this use case. I think this discussion would be a great discussion for anyone, especially SMEs. What happens, especially on my podcast, right? I end up interviewing people from 35 to 40 plus countries. So
Mhm.
for me, that is a global market. And 1995%, I can say 99% people are from SME companies. When you talk about vendor world. They have small data products. And I think the biggest challenge everyone is facing when they go and face a customer, they prefer bigger vendors. They prefer big five or big four, like Accenture, Deloitte, EY, PW.
Mm,
They prefer those. But I'm sure in your thesis, in your study, you will be able to give us some kind of synergy, something, how to build trust when some small company goes to a customer, what things they can show to them, what are are there any models they can follow to build that trust? As you said, anyone start with judging, right? When some
yeah,
start judging, you have to build a trust. And trust
yeah,
can also be built when you share a knowledge. So
yes.
enlighten us. We would love to hear that. Good, I'm
Okay,
recording the transcription as well, so these can go
okay,
into
yeah.
my records.
So, so after my study, so what I've done, I mean, you've got numerous definitions of trust.
Hmm.
And the main one that everybody use when studying trust is from Mayer. Now, it's a model that's been developed in 1995, which is still applicable today.
Hmm.
I just want to mention that since then, in the trust studies, the move is more to study vulnerability, which is part of trust. Um,
Okay.
but okay, let me go. I'm just going to open my document. So what I've done is, you see that if you look at the models I looked at, it's definitely McAllister. Now he's got a nice uh, research paper on trust. I looked at Meyer Davis. There's a Rousseau et al. And then also at McKnight. Okay, it doesn't make sense when I say it, but as soon as you've got the document, it will make more sense. But the main one that's really applicable to a practical side is the one from Gillespie. It's called
Okay.
the behavioral trust inventory. Now, what she's done is she created 10 questions to measure trust. And but what I've done is I've taken the previous models and all their verified trust attributes, and I've created a new model that incorporates everything. So it will include judgment and behavior. So most of the studies in trust is split between judgment and behavior, and this one incorporates both. So at the end of the day, what I've done is I've came up with my own definition of trust. So I'm just going to read it. Trust is first judged and then reinforced or weakened by observable behaviors. Judgment informs trust decisions, while actions validate or challenge that judgment and trust over time. So in essence, that's what we're saying. You first judge and then you go on behavior. And that's the whole trust cycle, and that's where you can determine what trust levels are currently. With a couple of questions based on this, and maybe use it in other situations as well.
So actually, this is great, right? Because as I mentioned that a lot of companies, why I refer the podcast is a lot of companies are coming to me and they say, "Hey, why don't you sell our product across the region?" But the thing is, I've talked to few months, but the trust factor is not there, right?
You see, and you can take it further now. Geopolitics, that's also a trust thing. Everything's based on trust at the end of the day, and
Yeah,
you
yeah,
you
yeah.
make and you
And
make
use
decisions.
your these models actually. What we can do is, actually I was just processing it. We are a data
Uh,
guy, right? Whenever something coming in, I'm processing, so
so,
I'm lost in there. So I'm going to build
simple.
something. I will have your thesis as well as you said. You can share your paper.
Yeah,
I will go through as well, and this will really help us actually because in
yeah,
agentic AI world, small vendors are coming in. They have specific products but they are unable to sell their product because trust factor is missing, right?
yeah,
So this can
yeah.
really help us.
I mean, how do I know you when you, especially sales? I mean, it's really hard. How do you engage with somebody? It's it's really hard. So you need to build trust first. You
Yeah,
know, if you go in with a big, well, that's me. What I do is if I even in my personal life, if I need to get somebody to do something at my house, For at least half an hour, I just speak to that person to get to know each other, to
Hmm.
find common ground. Simple things like then you will know, you're building trust in the sense that you're starting about, type of person you're talking to. You get a sense your judgment it's there, but now it's starting to change maybe. So you're building a trusting behavior, or you say, no, I'm not. But to get to know each other is I think your weakest links is the place where you will share the most knowledge. But to get there, you will need to make sure there's some level of trust. Why are we doing this? Why are we having this podcast? There's a certain level of trust between us at the beginning. So what I've done is, so obviously, I said, wow, nice pod. You invited me to a podcast. I started reading your resume or whatever on LinkedIn. So I made my judgment and I said, wow, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. So
Thank you.
that's yeah. So now that's my judgment. So now that's where my trust will start between us. So we will talk and we will share because I know your competence is there, the integrity, benevolence, everything is in place. So my judgment is so I can be open.
Yeah.
It's not an issue. But if
Yeah.
it's hard for companies to see within sales. I mean, you don't have that visibility. You just have facts. You don't have the people and the process behind it. And that's a difficult one to put into sales.
I have one more question, very related question, right? What is trust is damage? How to do a damage control? I think this is a very relevant from this topic, right?
Mm. I once saw a talk. There's another podcast called Trust Talk
Trust talk.
and
Okay.
Trust Talk, and in there, I can't remember the person's name, but they actually talked about repairing trust. And I'm speaking from memory now, but one of the things is in politics. Uh, do politicians actually apologize for doing things wrong? No. So, and the reason being they did studies to say it causes more harm for politicians to say, I'm sorry, I'm wrong, because now they see the person as weak.
Hmm.
So in that sense, so what I'm trying to put it back to organizations is I will go back to the basics and the attribute and say, where did we fail? No, I will ask the customer. If you're lucky, they will say, because no, listen, you guys, I don't see you, you're not competent. You don't pitch up for meetings. You don't have the correct knowledge. You can't answer my questions, things like that. And if you say, okay, now I know, you can say, okay, but next time, I'll focus on that and give me one more chance. I wouldn't say one more chance, but let's try that. Lessons learned. But I really believe, if you look at the outcome, what you will achieve, it's still beneficial, and there will be hiccups. So this is a hiccup. We be honest. That's the main thing. It's a difficult one sometimes, but be honest and open, and then that will happen. And the reason
Okay.
why I'm saying honest and open is a study from I think that was the guy from the Netherlands. He said the only way you can share knowledge
Hmm.
is if you've got three attributes: flexibility, openness, and time. That's it. If you don't
And
have that, you will not share knowledge.
flexibility, openness, and
Time.
time. Okay.
So
Okay.
it's like we're having now. So if I didn't have time I wasn't flexible or open, then we will not talk today.
Mhm. Mhm. So actually, this discussion is going so good, right? That the moment you introduce yourself to a new customer, let's take an example of a new customer as well. So I think that new customer, as you mentioned, they are judging you because first of all, they have given you a time, and why they have given you a time based on they trust someone because someone told them that hey, I'm sending a new vendor, just have a look. So first of
Mm,
all, that how much your reference counts to a person who is listening to you. If that person is just listening to you, referred by someone who he doesn't even trust, but just because of scenario or XYZ, they're just listening you, then it's a waste of time, right? And at
Yes.
that time, I think you need to build some kind of trust that what you have done, how many people you have with you, what is their portfolios, what they have
Yeah.
delivered, what is their
Speak.
credibility, right?
Yes.
The
And,
people
yeah.
who are working with you, right?
Uh, get to know your customer. I
Yes.
mean, you've got a proposition, but you need to have what I would call it, I wouldn't call it a cognitive level, but you need to be on the same page on what you're talking about.
Mm.
Because sometimes there's misconception. You will have a product which is brilliant, but the way the customer understands it is totally different. So now you need to get to that point where it makes sense for your customer to actually go further. But while you're doing all of that, you're building trust or not. Wait, that's
I
for
have
sure.
one more question actually. This just popped up. As I mentioned, I always go raw, right? So
Mm.
another question. T- Tell us about this thing because when you have a trust and you're, of course, you're talking to a persona, right? In an organization, does your parameters to build a trust and share a certain knowledge is based on the persona you are addressing?
Yes, yes. So you will see if you knowledge sharing. So if you look at an organization, it's vertical and horizontal. So and as is it should be, the top management can only share certain knowledge. I mean, it's not going to share any trade secrets or things that will, further the organization. So it's internal knowledge which needs to be kept. So there will be knowledge sharing, but most knowledge sharing will happen on a horizontal level. So that's where you will actually find what's happening in the organization. But then it boils down, if you go to knowledge management, and this is the biggest misconception people have on knowledge management. It starts with people.
Mm.
Data information management is part of knowledge management. But knowledge management is about people. So then you have all these different ways of knowledge sharing. I mean, for instance, you've got they call it a boundary spanner. So that's a person that will work in one silo, let's say horizontal, but he's got a friend 2 levels up, and they talk to each other. They trust each other, so that they share knowledge. So, but now that person at the bottom, can now say, okay, listen, I know and I can share a certain knowledge, not all of it, on a horizontal level with my colleagues, and that's where I think the biggest mistake is, in the sense that I call it boundary spanners. You need to speak to somebody outside your environment and build a certain level of trust. So yes, according to your roles, to answer your question short, according to your roles, it will be the level of trust you will share, and that's also part of that tool which I've developed, in the sense that according to your position in a company, you ask a couple of questions. You ask the truster, ask the trustee questions, and the trustee gives his perception on the trustor. So now you've got to now, like for instance, if you appoint somebody to do your engineering work. So you've got the CV, so competence is there. He knows his technical stuff. So if I am the guy that is the trustor, and I speak to the trustee, I assume already and judge and say, you know how to code in Databricks. So if you don't, and you start working and you don't do that, your trust level falls. Competence is gone.
Mm.
So now you've got an issue. So, and then you will judge that person again and say, okay, listen, I cannot depend on this person. He makes me vulnerable. He's supposed to do the work, and we're supposed to get to the project deadline, but I feel vulnerable. So now trust is broken.
Mm.
So I think so in the academic world, yes, they talk about it like I'm talking now, but on the practical side, you might need to make it practical, and that's where I started to develop that model, in the sense that you will be able to measure that sort of thing, just to get an idea what's happening in the organization for a start.
Mm. Okay, okay. So I'll bring this question one step back where you mentioned that you have to build trust outside of your traditional norm, which I
Mm.
think you're referring that if you are going to talk to a person for a certain company, go out, have a coffee and this and that, right? In that trust building, a lot of people say that that's a maybe a false practice. How do you take that one, that meeting out of the office?
I think if you look at that first, okay, let me just go to that list. If you if you do that, I think this is where motive comes in.
Hmm.
Okay. So why are we doing this? Why are we talking this? I suppose most of the time when it's like at a conference, you've got different vendors, different people, they talk to each other and they will share knowledge, but they will only share it in a sense that what they feel should be shared. Okay, and that's actually common sense, so that doesn't answer your question. But I think it's more a question of boundaries.
Hmm.
So certain roles in certain positions, in certain circumstances, certain attributes of trust will be more relevant. So in this case, I would say boundaries and vulnerability. So you
Hmm.
will share, but you will always keep in mind, I've got my boundaries and I've got my vulnerability. And then you will try to figure out in a trust instance, the benevolence, are we actually talking to each other and it's not helping, but it's a productive discussion. So let's
Hmm.
say, for instance, a guy says, "Yo, have you heard about these and this oaks, in the industry?" And that guy will say, "No, I haven't. What happened?" And he will share that. It's not applicable to him,
Hmm.
but you get more information which you didn't have. That
Hmm.
sort of thing will help building trust.
Okay, awesome. So let's go a little bit in technical side, right? When you're saying knowledge, right now we are talking about trust and knowledge management at a very high level, that why you trust to give our, our information or knowledge to someone, right? Now let's go into data. One of the biggest challenge nowadays, management is not trusting the data itself. And there are many reasons, right? There, one of the biggest reason is data quality. Second of the reason is transparency, because then agentic AI or generative AI, what they are doing, their models being trained somewhere else. You do not know, data goes out and come in. Even you deploy Llama in your organization, you train it based on certain taxonomies and ontologies, and then you run your model. XYZ, there are a lot of reasons, right? And you don't have transparency. People, so one of the biggest risk or challenge I am hearing everywhere, that C level is not trusting the data, even dashboards are there, reports are there. How do you think that this trust can be built? Of course, they're not going to allow you to build a data product and then you go and build a trust. You have to do something before you start building a data product, right? Tell us about that from this end.
Mm. I would say, going back, okay, to the knowledge management attributes, like I said, system, people, and process. So system will include your technology like data management. So
Yeah.
that's ticked. So the next step is talking about the process. How is that being shared? How's that information being shared?
Mhm.
Does it make sense to, is it something that will be interesting to, or will the CEO be interested in this, or whatever level, if you can't use it, you can use it, you're not going to access it. If it doesn't make sense, it's not something applicable to you that you will use, you will not use it. But again, then it's what I would say, with what is very important is the next part is change management. So as soon as you change technology, you need to have a change management process. It's like marketing. You will need to go out and market this and tell people this is out there. If you don't know what you don't know. And I agree with you, especially with reports and things like that. I- it's difficult to get to the point for people to actually use data.
Yeah.
But but the thing is,
Gartner
as soon as
says, by the way,
and that
Gartner says 75% project sits on shelf. Can you
yeah,
see? And they're in production. Dashboards
and
are
that
running, reports are running. Why they call it a shelf? Because nobody is trusting that data and nobody is taking a decision on top of that.
yeah, and that's again, for me process, and people. So I would go back to that, and I would say, no, it sounds stupid, but again, trust.
No, no,
I will
you're
go back.
absolutely right. So let me
I will,
map it for our audience, right? Because I'm referring to an agentic AI. Because now agentic AI is here. But fortunately or unfortunately, generative AI has opened everyone's eyes, right? Then when generative AI came in, everybody started just throwing everything into it and expecting things, everything to come out. It didn't come out. All reports, McKinsey and MIT says, some say 85%, some say 95% project fails, right? So that really opens the eyes of C-level and everyone, hey, trust is not there. So now when agentic AI comes in, people has paused, they have paused. They are saying, let's build, as we started our podcast, we say they are saying, let's build governance. Let's build foundation. Why they are saying is because they want to trust it. End of the day, they want to trust it. Now let's go towards governance, right? Because when you talk about trust, when you talk about transparency, of course, in data world, if you have a transparency, trust comes, right? It's not now we are going toward a trust in a technical end, high level trust we have already discussed. Now, how you trust, you know what is happening inside. Now, what is happening inside, most of the time it is not transparent, it's a black box, right? Now, if it is a black box, how you trust it? For me, I also want your comment on it. For me, you need to have a proper data governance. And within the
mm,
governance, you have metadata. And within the metadata, before you any comment, I feel people think metadata is just to know what is table, what is column definition. I feel metadata brings a lot of more stuff, which is information modeling, where you have nodes and links and all those attributes.
mm,
FCOIM modeling. There are many kind of business modeling is also there. Apart, other than this hardcore physical tables, people don't look into those entities and relationship into a information modeling, FCO modeling, for example, relationship at a logical model, relationship as a conceptual. People forget about that. People
mm.
think governance is all about metadata. They agree on it, but they go up to the level of what is the description of the column. That's all. They don't go further to that. So, what is the importance of this information modeling, business modeling, in knowledge sharing? Because that is the knowledge, right? And
Yeah,
that can create it. So
definitely.
what's your take on it?
So I think, okay, we all know the old Dharma wheel, you
Yeah.
know, Howard wheel, that wheel, and in the middle, I've got data governance.
Yes.
I don't agree with that.
Okay.
It
That's
should
a good
actually be
start. That's a good start for
all
conversation.
all the pizza slices should go to the middle, and right outside you should have a circle saying data governance or governance.
Governance across overall. Okay.
Governance sits on everything, not in
Agree
the
with that.
middle. So what that I suppose that's what Dharma tried to show in that thing, but in that diagram, I think it for the person that doesn't know will see, governance is something separate, and it goes there, it goes there, it goes there. It's like it's only, it's siloed for specific for metadata and lineage and quality and security. But it's actually data governance at the end of the day is that makes it happen. Okay. If you don't have data governance, none of that will work. None. I mean, it's definitely the most important part of data management is data governance. Okay. You have that. And to add on that, I would put another circle outside and say knowledge management.
Mm.
Because now, how do you make all of this stuff? How do you make people, processes, and all the systems work together? And that's where the issue comes in. People will not um, use data for the sake of data. It needs to have, and I think we're talking about AI. I think it will be interesting to happen, what will happen in the future. I mean, people are very clever, and I think the way LLMs and agents are going to work will change, and it's getting better and better all the time. I mean, it's absolutely, for me, it's absolutely amazing. Um, I think the biggest challenge will be in that sense is memory and meaning. How does AI know what it's talking about and replicate the same answer over and over again? So And that's where trust comes in.
Mm.
It's not the competence is there, it can generate stuff. Okay. Is it predictable? No, because it gives you different answers. Yes, let's say 90% of the time it's correct, but it's still not there. So as soon as those boxes are ticked, I think governance, and if you can do that in governance and in data management, which is basically impossible, it's like an utopia if you want to get there. But the only way you can build that is proof. You have to have an action to an outcome that will make a decision on yes, I want to use it, yes or no. So it needs to be visible. You need to do that change management. Otherwise, how is it going to change my world? If it's going to add the complexity to my world, I'm going to be reluctant to use it. But if it's going to make my life easier, by all
Yeah,
means.
yeah.
So if you know that what they call it, active metadata management, things like that. So governance, they try to uh, uh, focus on the technology side to do governance, which is good and you should have. I mean, you have to mark your personal information and sensitive information and things like that. You have to check your data quality. And data quality is also a discussion you could talk about hours and hours. Um, you have to know what you have in the back end. So if you data quality is at 70%, you immediately know you will only get 70% correct answer.
Yeah.
Uh, it's simple as that. So but there you are. I think the reason why data governance survives most of the time is because of regulatory requirements. You have to, according to law, you need to do
So
this.
unfortunate, right? So unfortunate. Your governing starts just to fulfill regulatory requirements. You are absolutely right. If
That's all they do.
regulatory goes away, like there are some domains where regulatory is hardly there, you hardly have governance. Yeah. Nobody
Yeah.
cares.
So in that sense, yes, data governance is not going to go away, and
Of
it's
course.
going to. I think, and now, especially now with this whole AI explosion, it's going to get bigger. I'm sure about that
See,
because
that's what
now
I'm saying. This
you
year
see,
is about data governance. That's what my take is. I'm
mm,
hearing it because this all EU and America, AI, all this regulatory coming in because they are going to enforce all these. So people
yes,
are die have to do it. So this
yeah,
year for
yes,
me is for data governance.
and getting back to knowledge sharing now. So what's going to happen? I mean, if you look at where people used to put their knowledge out on the internet,
Yeah.
okay. Now, I think my personal opinion is going to change. You will have more uh, paid instances. You will not get knowledge for free anymore.
No, I
Companies
go
will.
next level. One of the guy from physician is Neil deGrasse Tyson, right? I picked up his quote that internet is going to crash. Nobody is
Uh,
going to trust internet anymore. If not today, maybe in few months or a few years. That time is for me. It has already come.
yeah.
Last time I do not know when I went on to the Google. I don't remember that. Secondly, last time when I open a video and I see a AI talking and I listen that, I never do that. It's a waste of time. So he also says internet is going to crash and brand net is going to come. And brand net, when you're saying paid things, that is exactly what it is. If I trust Joe, and I will only follow Joe. I don't need
Mm,
to follow someone else. So that absolutely what you're saying is that
mm,
when we say paid thing means, of course, if 100,000 people start connecting with you, you will charge, and you will feel that people trust you and you are worthy enough to be charged. So people will start charging that, and I agree on that one. Please.
yeah. And in that sense, if you can call it the knowledge economy, if you look at
Knowledge
it like
economy. Okay, good word. Okay.
yeah, so that's what's happening in there. It's the way we monetize knowledge. Now it's going to be interesting, but I think to get back on data management and knowledge management, I still believe, in my opinion, knowledge management should be part of data management and data governance, um,
Yes, agree on that.
and not just focusing on the technology, but the people as well.
Okay, now
And
now how
so
to make
now,
that happen? Question is how to make that happen.
I
So
would do is I would start with, okay, let's say I'm in an organization. So I would start with informal meetings. I will have informal meetings. All we do is we talk about our lives, our hobbies. You don't touch politics and religion, but you talk about your lives and you get a common ground to talk about stuff. So let's say, for instance, I like ABBA, and this guy likes ABBA, and he goes to concerts. Now you've got a common theme to talk about. So immediately there's some relation between you. So you build that trust in an interpersonal way.
Hmm.
And then you start talking, okay, now this, and then you say, okay, let's talk about work. You say, okay, yeah, look, I've done this and this and this. This doesn't work. Okay. Now you start sharing knowledge. You start, and then if trust is built more, that person will tell you more things that it makes him vulnerable in a sense that I'm not supposed to tell you this, but actually this and this and this happened as well, which you will not normally share. So that's where trust comes in for me. Um, Knowledge wise, I would call it knowledge pods. Start small. I mean, you get communities of practice, they call it. So you get all the people and they share their knowledge. For me, it's a one-way street. It's sharing knowledge, but it's not interactive, and I think people feel vulnerable because somebody will stand there and say, okay, listen, this technology is the best, and I'm using this technology. Now he talks and he says my technology is the best. You're not building trust, you're breaking trust.
Yes.
Because this person's objective and way of doing things is different than mine, so it will affect our trust. So informal, I think, is the most important part of building trust. And then you start looking at the more work-wise things.
See, where I come from is I have additional opinion about CDO role. Let's touch base. Let's take it our last topic to discuss. We are already on top of 45, 60 minutes. Let's take it as a last angle to look into it. What's your take on CDO role, Chief Data Officer? Because my career growth is towards CDO role. That's what I'm looking, right? And currently in current era, CDO role is one of the most fragile role. As per Gartner and other surveys, maximum 18 months to 24 months, this role survives and a new guy comes in. And there are many, many reasons for me. But Nevan, you share because I've shared many times. I feel CDO role is more of a IT right now. They need to go towards more toward business. And right at the end, the most blunt thing which I say that CDOs need to sit into the board. When business strategies are being made, at that time CDO, when I say CDO, chief data officer has to be a data background guy like you, like someone who has spent a decades in data from scratch. No one who can simply come and do some kind of
Agree.
certification, I don't want to name it, and become a CDO because he
I
doesn't
agree.
know the whole implications till and the end. So I feel that person need to sit into a board when business strategy is being made. They say, hey, let's invest into a technology like agentic AI and let's spend 500 million on it and let's build this. So this guy will tell you, hey, technology is not mature. Hey, our data quality is not mature. Hey, our business metadata is not mature. We cannot go into this journey. So what's your take onto it? Because not a lot of people agree with me.
I I I totally agree with you. So
Oh, thank you.
your chief data officer is it's one of the most important roles, I think. But as you say, I mean, you need to know everything. You need to have experience.
Yeah.
And it's like you say, you can't just do a certificate and say you're a chief data officer. That's not going to work. And I think, as you say, and I think it's very important, is you need to know your business.
Yes.
If you, I've seen in one company, is the CDO is technically brilliant, but he's more brilliant because he knows the business. It was absolutely amazing. When you talk to this person, he will say, you will be in your small world. I would actually call him the chief knowledge officer as well, not just the CDO, because he knows exactly how everything fits in together. If you change something here, it will impact that. If he knows, except for the technical terms, the business lingo by heart. If you if you sit at a business, he's able to talk technical but also business. And I think, unfortunately, in the technical side, we tend to forget about business. But if you can manage to learn how to talk to business in such a way that you don't say data, you are there. So what they need to know what the benefits are, what will make my life easier, and what will be the profit I make from this.
Okay,
But not in a data sense.
then
But
I have
the
a
data
question
that
here.
so the data officer needs to make it happen.
Yeah,
But business will they don't care what you do. They
but we
just
don't
want
care. They
they
don't.
don't care. That I just want results.
So,
And that's but yeah, the CDO is I you need to be very technical. Very. But
actually,
also
it's awesome that you have brought in this new name of this video, CKO, Chief
no
Knowledge Officer. But
yeah.
I have a question here, right? Which normally, uh, how to put it in such a way, right, that it doesn't disrupt our discussion. See, when you know the business, then you are, I feel that will be very difficult to find a CDO with data, whole data background, couple of decades, and he or she can be very good in functional side or a domain side. It will be a you will have a superman or superwoman, and then the next challenge will be that if that person is very good into data background and plus very good in banking. Let's take an example of banking, right? Then this person knows in and out of banking. Then he is stuck into banking domain. He cannot go into, or she cannot go
Yeah.
into telco.
Yeah.
That is where I feel that CDO role should know business up to the level they understand the lingo. That's all. I restrict CDO up to that level. That they understand the business, what banking is, they understand the lingo, most of the domain knowledge, I feel they leave it to the business. Let them think what use cases they want to develop. Let them think what business processes they need to. The moment they build and they want to implement into the technology, that is where the CDO role must understand what they're saying and must understand how to implement it. 25%. That's my take. You can comment on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to sum it up, it's that good old argument, does business drive information technology or information technology drive business?
Okay.
So,
Okay.
and if I understand correctly, you're saying business should drive information technology. Because at the end of the day, that's my approach is you can tell business these are the options, but business needs to tell you what they want.
Yes, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, it's like a dashboard. Now you've got this weird and wonderful technology, and you create a dashboard with a nice report. Business didn't ask for it.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean anything. They can't use it. So what does business want? And I think that's where, for a lack of, I mean, terms change so many times, but the business use case
Yes.
for any project is vital. Even if it's just high level, put it on paper. And again, what is weird for me is as soon as you do that, the lingo, the acronyms, definitions of what you're talking about. You're talking about a data warehouse, a data lake, or data bricks, or whatever. It needs to be there so that everybody can make sense and be on the same level on what's happening and why are we discussing it. Because if you have different meanings to different words, it causes confusion. But yeah, I say business should drive IT and IT not business.
Yeah, for me, business should drive, and this person, which I say CDO, should evaluate whether this is doable or not doable. You know, the idea of a Superman was in 1940s. Still, people
Yes.
cannot
True.
fly. So yes, you can have a super good idea. You want to do whatever you want to do it, but still, whether it is achievable or not, I think that is very important. I think it was a great session, Joe, and really, as I'm going towards a CDO role, this this session has really given me a lot of knowledge. That's why I don't prepare myself normally because
Yeah,
then I
no, if you think about it, that's what we're doing now is what I said at the beginning. Informal discussions, you know. Um, That's how you share knowledge. You
No, I
don't
loved it.
really. I take my hat off for people, for salespeople. Really, I do. It's
Yeah,
not easy.
I think
It's really not easy.
this thing. I'm happy that I have the transcription open, and do
Okay.
share your paper with me. I'm going to really spend some time onto it. I'm going to build some kind of, actually right now I am building a framework. My dear, I'm building a framework to pass to our salespeople, so when they go to their customer, which kind of questions they want to ask, right? And I think your paper can really help me out on that one.
Yeah, I'm just going to say the questions you should ask is yes, but I would say I would start with I'm going to answer some questions first. So I'm going to
Okay,
say I'll speak about my reliability, my boundaries,
fair.
my benevolence. I will ask the questions from the
Yeah,
customer.
so
But that's my opinion. That's my
first question,
opinion.
no, which is perfect. See, this is an input for me because what I was thinking is always go and ask a customer to start with, hey, how decisions, what kind of decisions you take. The moment that person says, hey, we do this kind of decisions, then you ask how you come up to these decisions. Then these guys will tell you, this is how I come. Then you ask, do you have any challenge in taking these decisions? Then they tell the challenge, and then you go and okay, maybe we are able to help you out on that one. Let's do one MVP, this and that. But your question is also valid. When you start what decisions you are taking, until they don't trust you, they are not going to share that knowledge. And that decision which I'm talking about is a knowledge. And they are not going to share that knowledge until unless they build a trust. And I think that
Yes,
is where your theory comes in. It's a great input for me, right?
yes,
That build a trust so they can share those actual
yes,
decisions, not the one which doesn't make sense because they are going to share you something because they are sitting with you, but that something
yes.
need to be of value enough that you can embark onto that journey. Am I taking it
Yeah,
into the right direction?
absolutely. I mean, okay, I know time's up, but just as an
No, it's
example.
okay. I don't have hard stop by the way.
So when you join a team or whatever, when you need to speak to the person and say, listen, this is my role and responsibility, and I trust you to do this and this. So and I trust and I think you trust me to do this and this and this. So
Hmm.
you're open from the start. And my motive in here is to do this and this. Then you immediately build trust because now the person knows I don't have to guess where this guy comes from.
Be open, yeah, as you mentioned.
Be open. Openness, flexibility, and time. That's
Openness, flexibility, and time. Awesome.
and
This
then
is
that trust. Then you put in the other trust I mentioned when you've got knowledge sharing.
and I
Okay.
think in this year when we talk about research data governance and foundation year, I think trust building is also there in this year, that you end up creating a trust with the customers because you're going to give them a technology which is not trustable. Agentic AI is not trustable right now, but you have to give
Yeah.
them, right? How to give them,
Yeah.
how to make them trust that you are saying this will work and
Look,
is it going to work or not?
I think people, if you're honest, people are. If you say, listen, this is 80% correct,
Hmm.
open, honest, and you make yourself vulnerable, obviously, because now it's the same with my project and that. But you leave it to your client to decide or judge you. And I say, okay, but listen, this guy, this type of technology I can use because I know the risks.
Hmm.
So just the last comment on the risks, and this is what I'm going to put in the model as well. As soon as you talk about risk, you only have they call it the four T's: transfer, tolerate, terminate, or what's the other one? Leave. You leave it. But yeah, you've got four T's. I'll just check it up, and that's risk.
Hmm.
So they can decide what they want to do.
Okay. Awesome. Again, Joe, thank you so much for taking out time. This was our first session. I hope it won't be our last. I will catch you back in our 3, 4 quarters. Normally, I book people 1 year ahead. So I will do that, try to find some session from you. Again, any last things you want to say before we close this session?
Just thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I'm looking forward to yeah. Let's do it again.
Let's
It will
do it
be
again.
very nice.
I hope I have been enough challenging so you can enjoy
Yeah,
these
no,
questions.
I love it. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Thank you. Have a nice day. Take care. Have fun.
You too.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.